Hello, my name is Charlotte Cates. I'm a member of the steering committee of the International People's Tribunal on U.S. Imperialism, Sanctions, Blockades, Coercive Economic Measures. I'm also the international coordinator of Samidoun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, a co-sponsor of the Tribunal, and an active member of the National Lawyers Guild and the International Association of Democratic Lawyers, two organizations that are also co-sponsors of the Tribunal and which are working diligently to advance the same perspectives, views, and goals of the Tribunal in the legal community in the United States and internationally. The goal of the Tribunal is to provide a basis for meaningful legal action to hold the United States, its officials, and its complicit allies, including Canada, accountable for the harms that are done around the world by the ongoing and repeated practice of sanctions against a massive portion of the global population. The Tribunal views sanctions not only as a mechanism of warfare waged against countries, particularly by the imperial core powers, but also as a mechanism of value transfer by which economies around the world are subjected to domination and hegemony by the United States and its partners through the use of sanctions, blockades, and other coercive economic measures designed to extract wealth from targeted populations and render targeted nations impoverished and unable to defend themselves against the political, military, and economic demands and control of imperialism. Of course, at this time, what we're seeing around the world is a tremendous movement forward challenging those sanctions, not only legally, not only politically, not only through the agitational and organizing work that we see organizations like the Sanctions Kill campaign doing, and research like we see in the production of this book that's being launched here today. But also on a very practical level by countries around the world. The escalation of the use of sanctions, the use of the US dollar as a weapon and as a mechanism of economic control has perhaps never been more clear than it is today. And this is leading to a resurgent interest in de-dollarization and trading without the control and oversight of the US dollar, of US economic and financial institutions, or of their partners in the European Union, Canada, and elsewhere. And one reason for this is because of the tremendous harm that sanctions have done, their role in war, in impoverishment, in the extraction of value from countries, in forced migration, in the destruction of economies, and in regime change is really readily apparent to all. And in many ways, the United States does not even make an effort to hide it anymore. But we see that sanctions are used as a supposedly legal mechanism to engage in the most blatant mechanisms of colonial and imperialist control. And because of that, we also think it's very important to have a legal answer and a legal process of accountability by which the United States and its partners can be held responsible for the tremendous crimes that have been committed and are currently being committed against the peoples of the world. To echo the previous People's Tribunal that was carried out by the civil rights movement and leading Black activists in the United States in the 1950s, once again, we charge genocide. We charge genocide in countries around the world that are systematically targeted on multiple levels through sanctions that affect medicine, health, the environment, the economy, women, development efforts, agriculture, the environment, and essentially all aspects of daily life. The aim of the tribunal is to empower political and popular movements like we see in the Sanctions Kill campaign and in many other organizations doing this kind of important work in order to activate themselves, have arguments at their command, and build their movement stronger and more powerful than ever before. At the same time, it has a legal outcome as well, which is to identify specific causes of action that can be pursued by those who have been victimized and targeted by US sanctions around the world to specifically identify the crimes that have been committed by the United States, as well as the torts that have been committed by the United States against nations and people around the world, and provide suggested causes of action and legal strategies that can be pursued in US and international courts to bring an end to this practice of sanctions, blockades, and coercive economic measures that target the economies of peoples around the world that refuse to bow down to the dictates of imperialism. The tribunal has an expansive schedule of hearings because it looks at the role of these coercive economic measures in establishing control and domination in many areas of the world. Our hearings will focus on Zimbabwe, Korea, Libya, Lebanon, Syria, Gaza and Palestine, Sudan, Iran, Eritrea, Iraq, Yemen, Haiti, Nicaragua, Cuba, Ethiopia, Venezuela, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. Because we see that sanctions are not only a mechanism of pseudo-diplomacy, they're not only a mechanism through which international rivalries are carried out. They are also a direct mechanism of colonialism, they are a mechanism of imperial domination, and they are a mechanism of wealth extraction. We hold this as a people's tribunal because we know that just simply going to court all too often does not provide justice. And a people's tribunal in and of itself cannot compel the state to act in a certain way. But what people's tribunals can do is inspire and provide necessary tools for organizing now and in the future. People's tribunals allow those who have been deprived of power to put the powerful on trial and define the kinds of legal procedures that need to be pursued for real justice, for real accountability, and for a future that is free of imperialism. There's a long tradition of people's tribunals. As we referenced earlier, the We Charge Genocide petition to the United Nations is one of the most well-known people's tribunals of this time that highlighted the fact that US systemic racism and Jim Crow was not only an ongoing series of bad practices, but an institutionalized mechanism of genocide against the Black population that was directly connected to US imperialism internationally. We've also seen the Russell Tribunal and later future Russell Tribunal and the Brussels Tribunal targeting US imperialism in Vietnam, Iraq, and elsewhere. We've seen people's tribunals looking at US involvement in the Philippines and in many other countries around the world. And so through our work, we want to build on this important legacy of anti-imperialist, anti-racist people's tribunals that are also tied to clear legal analyses. This is one reason why we have jurists from around the world who are participating as jurors to put a verdict on the United States for its crimes, to enumerate those crimes clearly, and to identify specific causes of action that can be pursued as one mechanism that comes alongside de-dollarization, that comes alongside political mobilization, that comes alongside the actions of countries that are defying imperialism, mobilizing together. That through all of these streams, through political organizing, through social action, through the leadership and direct involvement of those nations who have been subjected to imperialist domination, sanctions, and warfare, through the legal mechanisms as well, are capable of creating a movement, of creating a political, legal, and academic and discursive framework that can bring US domination, hegemony, and imperialism to an end by stripping away one of its most dangerous and devastating weapons, that of sanctions, blockades, and coercive economic measures. We invite you to learn more about the tribunal at sanctionstribunal.org, and we invite you to join us for our upcoming hearings that will culminate in a closing hearing and plenary, as well as the reading of our initial verdict in Venezuela in July of this year. We'll also be following up with a published document and a book-length analysis of sanctions that builds on much of the work that we see here today, but that also presents new analysis obtained from the unique evidence, documentation, and testimony obtained from scholars, activists, and citizens on the ground who are directly affected on a daily basis by these US imperialist policies and US imperialist crimes. We look forward to a future of working together to create a world free of sanctions, free of blockades, free of coercive economic measures, and finally, free of US imperialism, a world of justice, equality, and human dignity. Thank you for inviting the Tribunal to be part of this program today, and we look forward to creating that world together.